Hi, I'm Louise Broekman, the founder and CEO of the Advisory Board Centre, here with Stuart Allinson for his Advisory Board Insights. Welcome, Stuart.
Thank you, Louise, and good day.
So, Stuart, let's start off with you sharing a bit about your story.
So, my broad background, I've been involved in energy all most of my life. I got involved in government policy around climate, but my sort of business journey, I went from working one of the big four consultants to doing my own thing, and then co-founding and leading a software startup from Melbourne to an ASX listing, and that's now operating internationally, Europe, USA, New Zealand, UK. So, you know, it was a hell of a journey. Other people that are better at that stage are dealing with that business now, but I came out of there and, you know, this sort of 6 day a week, full-time CEO, MD's role, and really wanting to reflect on that and then to look to do something a little bit more outward looking rather than sort of inward looking at just trying to run a company. I sat down and realized I'd learned a lot without really realizing it.
And tell me about the transition.
And I quickly got involved with other techs.
Right. Sorry, we just had a little glitch on the recording there, but we'll keep going. It's just like having an advisory board. You end up talking over the top of each other, don't you?
We try not to.
So tell me about
the transition.
Yeah, the transition into advisory boards, and what's been your experience in advisory boards, Stuart?
Yeah, so my transition in was I was approached by a couple of organisations trying to set up advisory boards, and I quickly realised there was just something not quite right in the way that they'd been set up. Either the incentives were wrong, or they'd kind of got the cart before the horse in getting the advisory board together before being clear about what it was that the advisory board was actually there to do. So I researched, as you always do with search engines, start off with advisory boards and see what's out there. And I found out your organisation, Louise, and that takes us way back to early 2018. And that, to me, gave me a really good approach to helping startups and emerging tech on a growth path. You know, I'd worn 3 different hats through my various roles in that previous existence: executive, non-executive, governance board member, and as well as sort of consultant and advisor. And the advisory board framework helped me to unravel kind of what hat you're wearing and what's the context in which you're operating. So I've been able to use that with about half a dozen different companies that are in the early stages of their development to put some structure and some protocols in place so that we can help those entrepreneurs as best as we possibly can.
What do you like about being on advisory boards, Stuart? Because you're on quite a few.
I think the overarching one is the sense that you can really get to the nub of a problem and to help. You know, I've come from a large corporate, if I go far enough back in my career, where, you know, you work in global organizations where there's an expert somewhere in the world on any topic and you can just pick the phone up, and small businesses don't have that luxury, right? So they're often time poor, and then they're often resource poor in terms of capturing that expertise. What I love about that is the network that I have access to within the Advisory Board Centre and the other experts that are out there. I really enjoy the advisory boards that I'm on because there's some really smart people that, you know, you're constantly learning as well as contributing. And then I recognise often in the MDs, you know, I've been on a path. Everybody's path is slightly different, but I think I've got a lot of empathy with those people having to make decisions with, you know, that time pressure all the time, and it can be quite a lonely job, right? So to have the ability to have a confidence an in confidence, trusted relationship and discussion to get to the bottom of challenges for the business and actually help them move forward, I think is, it's really rewarding, right? So hopefully it's a two-way flow of kind of contribution and reward.
Yeah, and it's nice being able to see the impact that you have on other people, but you're learning at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely, and it can often come early, just with a comment from an MD. A couple ones stick out. One, a business in South Australia, we came out of the last board meeting, he said that was a fantastic meeting, and you know that they've gone to some really challenging areas and kind of moved forward. And the other board that I chair, we had kind of a pivotal one very recently where we've really worked on the strategic imperatives and how that relates to the work of the governance board. And so I was there at a briefing with one of the independent directors, which then flowed into the governance board meeting in the afternoon, which I wasn't part of, but I'd led the advisory board meeting. And the feedback after that the governance board meeting went absolutely swimmingly because they really focused in on the issues that we'd kind of been working through. So that in itself is just greatly encouraging to hear.
And it also reinforces the importance of having the right governance frameworks around advisory boards to ensure that there is a distinction between the advisory board and the governance board and how it can actually support the governance board.
Absolutely, and I think for the uninitiated, I think there can be some confusion about that. But that idea of advisory, that's an important part of it. As I say to all the MDs that I work with, it's your sounding board, it's your resource. We're there to help you to make recommendations to the governance board and to get decisions made. That's where decisions gets made. This is where strategic thinking can happen in a safe place where you can really challenge the thinking. And I think it's really helpful to separate those things out, even if smaller organizations don't have the luxury of both, that they can at least be clear about the kind of context.
Yeah. So Stuart, to wrap it up, what tips do you have for business owners and what tips would you have for advisors?
What a great question. Tips for business owners: use your advisors, but choose your advisors well. I think you can be inundated with well-meaning advice. So getting the right advisors on board, I think, is a real imperative. And time challenged environment, it's one thing that's worth taking the time to do is getting that right. I think for advisors, I think, the key for me is to learn the context of the executive, the MD that you're supporting, to learn the language of their organization and their market, and to, and to avoid the temptation to live vicariously, right? You're there to help them. You're not there to run their business.
Yeah, very important advice. Stuart, thank you so much. You're always very generous with your time and really appreciate you sharing your insights today. Bye for now.
Thank you.